Hi, I'm Tim Tuller, canon for music at St. John's Cathedral. On April 18th at 7 p.m., Good Friday, myself and Dr. Linda Privitera are going to present a service of music and poetry based on the 14 Stations of the Cross. This service has its roots in the early 20th century. The French poet and diplomat Paul Claudel published a series of 14 poems on the Stations of the Cross in 1913. And the poetry is very interesting. It does talk about the traditional 14 stations that we are used to on Good Friday. Jesus falls the first time, Jesus receives his cross, etc., etc. However, this poetry is really interesting in that Claudel not only references the events in Jesus' passion, but he also draws parallels with the modern world and the sufferings that he saw in the modern world leading up to World War I. Things like soldiers dying in war, children dying of disease and starvation, and so on. So the poetry is really interesting in that it ties the events of Jesus's last day with problems that we see in the modern world in, I think, a very compelling way. In 1931, the great French organist Marcel Dupré, who was one of the finest organists of the 20th century, did a concert at the conservatory in Brussels. And this concert consisted of him improvising a musical commentary, a brief musical commentary, after each of these 14 poems were read, one after the other. So the original poem was read, and then Dupré would improvise a musical commentary on that poem. And the piece was so well received that Dupré was compelled to actually write down his improvisations after the concert. And so he wrote these down and published them, and that is the version that we have today, and that's what I will be playing. These are wonderful musical commentaries, and they really further help to bring out the deep meaning of each of these poems and elucidate upon them. This is really a wonderful, wonderful chance to hear some great music and poetry. It's not easy. It's not easy listening. It's not particularly easy to take in, but it's very profound and it's very meaningful for something to do on Good Friday as part of your Good Friday practice. And so I really hope to see some of you at this event, 7 p.m. Good Friday, with myself and Dr. Linda Privitera, the 14 Stations of the Cross. Poetry by Paul Claudel and music by Marcel Dupré.